Hey, how you guys do? You ready? In the mixtape.
Hola amigos del Mixtape. El día de hoy estoy muy honrado de presentar a una leyenda de la música, un baterista que puede poner su nombre ahí junto a personajes como Kid Moon, John Bowman, Charlie Watts. Es simplemente un honor. Estamos aquí con Christopher Miller, most known as Rat Scabies.
Mm-hmm.
How are you, Rat?
Oh, very well, thank you. Jet lagged.
Jet lagged.
Jet lag.
Yeah. When did you arrive?
About 3 days ago.
3 days ago, and I used to have jet lag. Okay, that's and how does that affect you?
I feel tired all the time. Because last night I went to bed at midnight and then woke up at 2:30, and I was just.
I've never experienced jet lag, but I've heard it's not that good.
Your body's just out of sync and you just feel very tired. And also being so high up, breathing is
oh yeah, because there's a huge difference in between the. Yeah, you do feel that?
Oh yeah, a lot.
Okay, so to start this up.
So isn't that terrible? It's like I'm tired, I can't breathe properly, and I'm here to play a show.
So that's one of the reasons, because one of the things I wanted to start with, I think, if I'm not wrong, this month the first Damn single, New Rose, is about to get 48 years old since that first single. And in that 48 years, you only, as the Damn, you only came one time in Mexico. It wasn't even an official concert.
No, we weren't supposed to be here.
If I'm not wrong, it was in 1991 in a bar called Iguana in Tijuana.
Yeah.
So do you think this jet lag, this height difference between where you come from, do you think that's one of the reasons you haven't made an official concert here?
No, I think it's a lot to do with money. And I think the record companies that we were signed to couldn't make enough out of Mexico and South America generally. And so they never bothered to release the records. And if they're not releasing the records, you don't do the tours. So I think, it wasn't because nobody wanted to come here or anything. It was just it was never offered. It was just, this is the first time somebody said, yeah, come over. And
returning to this idea of you say that you didn't, as the Damn, you didn't came to Mexico because of the record company.
Well, I think it was the business side of things. It's certainly, we'd always play anywhere.
You like to play?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Since the beginning, you like to play, because I've heard of some bands that don't like at all the experience of touring and playing live and dealing with people.
Sometimes it can be tiring. When you start out and you're all together in a small van and you're sharing hotel rooms and you have to drive long distances every day, then sometimes you wonder why you bother. But I suppose it's a bit like a long aeroplane flight. You hate it for the whole time you're sitting on the plane and then once you get together and you're like, oh, well, that was okay. And I'm kind of honoured that, well, that was okay. That's where I am now, because now it's a blast, I'm just really pleased that we got some organisation and we're finally getting to come to places like this and do other shows and to sort of do it without sharing a hotel room.
That's a pretty interesting thing, because I was just recently talking with someone about that, and you can understand that by different ways. This thing or this concept of I don't know how to say it, like the travel, but talking about like conceptually, like usually people don't like the travel, and not only talking about going to Japan or going to Germany, it's like they always want to be like from point A to point B, but
Yeah,
without thinking about what's in the middle.
Well, I think it depends where you come from. And I mean, the first time any of the band had ever been on an aeroplane was the very first time we toured America. We hadn't even been on an aeroplane, and I'd never been anywhere, you know. So for me, it was all one great big adventure. You know, it was I can go and see the world. I'd never been lucky enough or fortunate enough to travel very much when I was younger. And so that's why being in a band it's another great idea, is because you get to go to all these places that you've only read about. You know, just simple like Liverpool. You know, it's like, wow, that's you know, that's Liverpool, and I've got a gig there. That's you know, it kind of outweighed it, certainly for a while.
And do you what are your expectations for tonight's show? What? Because just today we were talking with the hypes. You're opening the show tonight for them, and I've asked them about what does Mexico mean to you, and we talk a little bit about, because they have like they do like some things about Mexico. There's like a band in Mexico called Los Tigres del Norte, and they play at London at the same venue of the hypes a day before, and they told us that before they came to Mexico, they've heard the crowds in Mexico were something crazy. Have you ever heard about that?
I did last night.
So recently, just last night.
Yeah, really. But I really don't know what to expect. You know, it's when we played in Tijuana, that was kind of wild. You know, and I'm hoping that people like us, and I hope people are warm to us, you know, and kind of know who we are. And but there's no way of judging for me anyway. I can't tell. I'll only find out when I get up there.
Because in Mexico, it happened something pretty weird. I really didn't get the chance to, but there's this part of music, statistic music, but if you go to certain music applications, you can see which country listens the most to a band.
Oh, right.
And usually it's like pretty weird that Mexico, it's always like in top 3, top 5 of all bands.
Very alternative. The taste here. I was talking with Joe Escalante from the Vandals, who was saying that the most listened to bands, this was a few years ago, but the most listened to bands were the Smiths and the Cure. And I was like, this is Mexico. What do they know about the
didn't
Smiths?
expect that?
Yeah, no, not at all. I could understand the Ramones and some kind of,
Yeah, a big connection with Mexico, right?
I mean, the Smiths and the Cure are so lyrical. You'd think that the language barrier would be very difficult for them to be popular in Mexico. It just, logically, it's a tough act, but in reality, it isn't that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good.
Well, you tell me, why is that? How do the?
I actually don't know. I find it pretty weird too. It's like we probably need to like look at a certain point in history, but it's been like for a long time, because we used to have it. I mean, I didn't live that era, but at least my father did, my uncle, but we have a lot of music. Like, we are pretty close to the United States, right? So
yeah,
pretty much everything that happens in the United States happened here, probably like with some years of delay, yeah. But it happened. So I mean, the Cure, the Smiths were huge in the United States. So
yeah, I guess it's.
Yeah, but I don't know, because I recently, the last year we had a festival, Corona Capital, and one of the headliners was the Cure, and I was like a little. I like the Cure, but I was like a little nervous because they were playing his whole set. Usually at festivals they reduce the time, but the Cure played the whole set, It was I think like 2 hours and a half or something, and I was like, I don't know if this many people will tolerate
Yeah,
this much of the Cure because,
I couldn't.
but the I don't know how to say it, the atmosphere was incredible. I mean, since the first song, because they started up with the new material they're releasing, it was incredible and
You see, I could understand a lot more a band that's easy to sing along with. Someone like, say, I don't know, Nirvana. You know, you don't need to speak English to sing along to their songs because they're very easy and simple to do. I could understand a simple lyrical thing being very popular, but something that Robert Smith, who's, you know, he's very good with words and he uses a lot of them. You know, anyway, it's, you know,
no, but
great.
it's interesting. I mean, but music can be seen as this. There's no barriers for music, right? Because and talking about this digital era, it's almost impossible to talk about these barriers in music.
Yeah.
Because again, I was just recently talking about this phenomenon that happened a few years ago, and kind of still happening right now. This one-hit wonder phenomenon that
Yeah.
at least here in Mexico it was very popular. That you only know one song of a band, and you don't know nothing more about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's interesting these things of barriers
What-
in music.
I mean, for me, what's interesting is now the machinery of the music industry because it's very difficult to be noticed. Because
Very difficult.
Yeah, because there's just so much there. Everything exists, and it's a click on a mouse, you know. And so, I think the real problem that a lot of the music, a lot of certainly young musicians, I think a lot of the issue they have is it doesn't matter how good they are, but it's how can they draw people's attention to what they're doing when there's just so much competition. And when you have the major record companies that have a lot more money and resources to do, you know, the Facebooks and TikTok accounts and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
You know, they've got people and it's just their sole purpose in life is to promote their acts. So if you've got a young band coming through that don't really have anything apart from a few gigs at parties and some relatives, it's, you know, it's really difficult.
It's a good point.
I think. And it doesn't encourage new music. Is the real thing because you have to have new music. You know, I have to be replaced by someone else. So, you know,
Do you think so?
yeah, of course. It's
I'm not sure about that.
well, I've done my bit. You know, I've made my statement. I've done it. You know, made the records as well as I could, and that's fine. And you know, but it doesn't stop there. It needs someone else to be coming along and I can do that. So I want to do that. But, you know, how can I do that is now a much harder proposition.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like you can watch it from a lot of points because it can be harder talking about competition because you're right.
But,
there's too many right now.
And it's affected the way songs are written now. Like you don't get introductions on songs anymore. Before you used to have a nice melodic part that would introduce the song and then the verse would come in and then the chorus. And now it's straight into the chorus, straight into the hook. And it's because it's too easy for somebody to click on that mouse and move on to the next track. So you have to now get people's attentions immediately, which means it affects the way people make their music.
Yeah, that's true because there's a talking about this competition in music. You need to hook up to more persons, right? So the more easy you do it with this I don't know how do you say it, but there's like always a song in which you like a specific part, but hook.
Other.
And but then you listen to the whole song and it's completely different to that little part. So yeah, but I mean we had that was the point of what I was talking yesterday, that in the past years the one hit wonders were like you just listen to them and there's that song. But right now, you as you say, you can click on the name of whoever is making that song, and you can get to listen easily that all his songs. And back then, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna click on the. It wasn't a specific. It was the song "The Promise" when in Rome, and back then how do you got to know more of when in Rome, and right now you have the chance of doing it. So
And well, the other thing is that I noticed is that you would listen to a record and the singer, and you would notice their personality and the personality that went with that voice. Oops. And I think that's something that is now much harder to get across. Is, you know, like somebody like Rod Stewart. Not that I'm interested in Rod Stewart, but Rod Stewart, you bought into the image, you bought into the sound of his voice, you bought into the kind of songs he sang. It was a complete package. But now you don't have the complete package, you just have the song with the hook. And if you like that enough, then maybe you'll look at their Facebook page or something. But otherwise, it's that element has now gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's... I say
It's
God,
like
it's been
it's like
diluted.
a whole mix, right? Because there's like a whole. I'm not that into them, but there's like a lot of bands that put a big effort in creating a personality, but not all of them as we used to have. So
yeah, and it's I don't know.
okay, so jumping up to the main thing of the podcast, we usually start with a kind of big question for me that my partner in there created, and I want to ask you if you got to make a youth rats mixtape, how would it be? How would it sound? Who what bands, what singer will include?
It changes quite often.
But back then, when you were...
Oh, the influences.
Yep.
It was my... I started playing the drums because of jazz. It was on the radio, and every jazz song has a drum solo, and I'd fallen for the drums. You know, that was... So my earliest sort of influences really would then moved on to Sandy Nelson, the Dave Clark Five, anything with lots of thumping, you know. And so those were kind of my earliest things. But but alongside that came Gene Krupa, and that.
But what music you grew up?
Well, and then as I got more into my teens, then it became more like I guess the Small Faces, the Who. I always dug Ginger Baker, so I didn't really like Cream records very much, but I kind of liked what he did on them. So those were the things that were around and influencing, and then beyond that, really, I started to appreciate pop, like Sweet, Mark Bolan, you know, the kind of great pop songs.
Yeah.
With lots of melody and things like that. So I kind of, you know, I think there's there's only two kinds of music, good and bad.
Okay.
So
what ones?
Well,
two kind of musics?
Yeah, there's like, good music and there's bad
the
music.
Bad one. Okay, there's no middle one.
No, well, not that I want to listen to.
Because here we call it something like I don't know how to translate it, but it will be something like guilty likes, like
guilty pressures.
Guilty pressures.
Oh, okay, yeah, something you're not.
I don't know. That probably could be the middle.
Like you've got a hidden,
bad and,
like you've got a Pink Floyd album hidden in your collection.
Do you have a hidden Pink Floyd album?
I've got several.
But if that's a guilty pleasure of you, Pink Floyd.
Only if I'm in that mood. You know, it depends what I'm doing. If I'm cooking and doing stuff, I'll listen to Turbo Negro and you know, kind of anything. I don't know. I don't like to sort of try and categorise it because it's not like I'm an opera fan, but I do like the Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, you know. But that doesn't make me a classical music fan. But there are some classical music pieces that I enjoy listening to, but at a certain time, just like, you know, in a sort of retrospective way, there's sort of things like a band like Family. I don't know if you've ever heard of
No,
them, but
I haven't.
just great band from
Band
the sort
love
of
Family?
70s. They were called Family,
Okay.
and they were kind of early 70s, I suppose. And I think, you know, just I like to be impressed when I listen to music. I like to hear greatness.
So you told us you started playing the drums because of jazz, right?
It was there was one show on the radio on a Sunday afternoon that my grandparents would have on the radio, and I'd listen to it, and there would always be drums, and I was probably too young to make that decision, but it was just something I fell in love with, just that sound.
And do you remember your first drums, or when you first like started
Oh,
playing?
they got me a children's kit, which just broke, really, and then you know, yeah, I do. I've still got some of it.
Because I've read that you learned by yourself to start playing, so
Yeah.
you just started like you tried to I don't know how to say it, to reply what you were listening.
Yeah, well, that's how you learn. You copy. And so I'd hear something on a record like "House of the Rising Sun" by Frigid Pink,
Yeah.
and I just remember listening to the drummer playing on the ride cymbal and go, "Wow, how do they do that?" You know, because you automatically don't. And just things like that, and just trying to do what I heard. And of course, you can't do that, so you end up kind of doing something similar but slightly different, which sort of helps you to sound slightly different to the other
Yeah,
guys.
you started making like your own sound, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully. I mean, I'm terrified of drummers today. There's so many amazing players there, and I just feel like, oh God, you know, I'm just really glad I don't have to learn how to do that now, because I don't know.
There's
if I
even
could.
like in social in Instagram and TikTok, you see some videos of little kids like playing the drums.
Fucking 8-year-old Korean
Yeah,
girl
it's
is
like-
playing like Rush songs.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Stop.
yeah, it's
I
impressive.
don't even want to know that you exist.
So, when you started playing drums, you only made it because you like it, you enjoyed it. But do you remember that exact point where you decided to pursue a career in music?
Oh,
Do you get the
oh, that was all I wanted to do.
But since you started playing the drums, or before that?
Oh, as soon as I, you know, as soon as I left school, really, it was because I realised I was still young, and I could quite happily chase a dream, and I wasn't particularly qualified at anything, and I thought, well, I can try and be a drummer, and then when I get to 30 years old, then I can go and get a job in an office or work on a building site or whatever. But I thought, well, I've got plenty of time to chase this now, and I got lucky. I ran into Brian James, and that was, you know, that was what did it.
And do you remember what was that thing of music that called you, made you fall in love with it, that made you decided to make that your dream? And
Yeah, it was difficult because I already loved it. So there wasn't a sort of an exact time where I went, oh, well, music, this is a great thing, you know. But it was because, you know, in England, there's always a lot of music around anyway. So you're quite exposed to
yeah,
it as an
to it.
existence.
Yeah, it's almost impossible not to.
Yeah, so I don't think I really had a sort of conscious moment, because even when The Damned began and we made the first album, it still didn't feel as if it was real. It was still just great. Well, now what happens? You know, this is what I've always wanted to do. I've made an album. I've been in a studio. I've got this band. We go on tour. You know, and now what? And you realise actually that's you know, if it does start to get boring, it's kind of then, because you realise that actually you're part of a process, and then you never really feel as if you're successful. You know, it's and probably because, you know, we'd made great records, but we never earned any money, so none of us had big cars or big houses or anything like that. And so, you know, you just sort of kept with it, thinking, well, you know, I've seen other bands with big houses and big cars. Surely we must be able to get one somewhere down the line. It's going to happen. But it never really did. So it was, you know, that was never a conscious thing of pursue. It was kind of, you landed in a place, you were continuing with what you were already doing, and what you would have been doing anyway, even if we hadn't have made an album and done a thing, we'd have still played and still made music. You know, it just seemed that was the icing on the cake.
And how was like to make an album back then? Because recently what we were talking about is this thing that the way of consuming music, and it's like at the same time the way of making music. It has to be a lot of different. And I've watching I don't remember the name of the documentary, but there's like even like a lot of titles of articles that say, I don't want to say because it's like something that I want to touch in a few moments, but it's one in particular that caught my attention, that I think it was a Rolling Stone one, that says Sex Pistols fuck off, the damn this thing that they always talk about, and you probably talk about a lot of it, but this thing that you were the first punk band to release a single and an album. So how was to making this
scary? And the point is that when you go in to make a record, you have no idea of the end result. You don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a future. You know, you don't have a fortune teller. That yes, this is going to be. You know, I thought, you know, it would probably last for a couple of months. The record would come out, and then it was disposable. That was the thing. You know, it wasn't meant to be preserved. It wasn't meant to be held up and worshipped. It was just time, place. We did that. That was what we were doing. That's what we were about. And okay, let's see what happens.
So you didn't expect what the dam could become?
No, certainly not. I thought that punk, like us and the Pistols, were so far removed from the mainstream music industry and everything else that was going on that we would be unacceptable. And but you have to remember, you see, punk didn't arrive and suddenly everybody cut their hair and bought a leather jacket. It was very small. It was very limited. You know, there wasn't much going on. It was only after about a year, really, I guess, that it then started to gather real kind of momentum, and then a lot more people started going to shows, and it became a much bigger movement, you know, and that's when it kind of turned into a profit for someone. But yeah,
you probably know more about this, but talking about this process of punk, how do you say, like overrunning the musical scene. I've heard there's a movie that probably reflects that process very good, the Avar in San Francisco, because I mean in a lot of places they put the punk movement in the UK and in almost at the same time in the United States, and there's this bar in this disco store in San Francisco that used to sell like some other stuff, and then he started bringing some punk bands and the movie.
But that's what they all did.
Yeah, focus on how even the bar in the inside of it turned completely. Like it was like a normal kind of disco store.
Yeah. Well, it suddenly became a replacement, I suppose, because it'd been pub rock was the big thing, and I think people want to sell beer and they want to make money, and they own a bar or something. And if the kind of country and western band isn't bringing many people through the door, but you can see 200 punks down the road queuing up to get into something, then logically that's what they're going to do, and it's what they did.
We chase for money, right?
Yeah. Well, everyone's got to eat. Everyone has to pay the rent. I don't. Money's not a great thing. It's what is money really? It's convenience. And the problem is, that I spent many years going, God, I must make some money. I wish I was rich. And then when I did earn some money, and it wasn't that much, but when I did earn some money, you suddenly realise it is just convenient. It doesn't change you. It doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't do anything. It means you can pay the bills without worrying. You can, maybe you can get a car and you can have an iPhone. But really it's not that important on the big scheme, I don't think. I don't even have a car. A
car? You don't have a car?
No. I don't need one where I am, and they're a pain in the arse, and it's like, and should we buy a car? I can afford a car, but at the end of it, it's like, no, I really don't want it. I don't need it, so why bother?
So that dream of you watching other musicians having his big houses, his deluxe cars. So you right now you're not chasing it.
Not personally. I want a luxury car to take me to the gig, and I want a good seat on an aeroplane. I don't want to be it doesn't mean I want to wear a cheesecloth. Well, I'm wearing a cheese, but it doesn't mean I want to be poor. It just means that it doesn't really bother me in my personal life. Getting around and being comfortable. So, anybody can be uncomfortable, but it's very difficult to be comfortable.
I'm finding everything like there's like a lot of if we like dive into those themes in music, because there's like a lot of people that only makes music because of money, and I usually like check about sponsors and everything, and it's it makes me a little bit sick to know how much money is running in between.
But you have to take in it's called the music industry, and it is. But what I like to think, and what I'm kind of seeing here, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here, is that there's a much more discerning taste in music. I think, disposable pop that's on the radio constantly or is being heavily promoted on the media is just that. It's disposable. But I think there's always been a large percentage of the public that don't like that and do like melody and lyrics and songs that have more meaning than just somebody kind of cleverly putting hooks and stuff together.
I mean, so we can talk about.
Well, I think the people that buy, I don't know who to slate really, but I mean, people that fall for that pure commercialism, deserve it. It's their own fault. If they're gonna eat the shit, then it's their own fault. It's the difference between a McDonald's and
McDonald's and what?
Well, the big earner in pop music is equivalent to McDonald's.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
And so if you choose that's what you're going to eat, then you deserve.
Yeah, we have a. Yeah, they say that if you want like to eat something quick, you can eat a hot dog, but if you want to eat like seriously, you can.
If you want to enjoy the food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I think as a species, human beings are pretty rubbish. I think we're too conscious of our media. I think the television tells us.
Yeah, and usually we know what we're consuming. No, we know that it's trash music, bad music, but we still consuming it.
But that's the industry at work, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's true. So, returning a bit to this start of the Dam after your first album, you said that the band didn't knew what was next. Like, you had there your record. If I'm not wrong, is Dam Dam Dam.
That was the first.
Yep. What came up next to?
Well, we hit quite a low point. For me, it was. Damn, Damn, Damned is the record it is. You know, it's a record that I was very proud of and pleased to be on. But we just didn't have the same songs for the next record. We had some, but we didn't have the same thing. And it was like I'd never written a song before, and then suddenly there was Brian saying, well, yeah, you guys need to write some tunes. And looking at the guitar and thinking, it's on here somewhere. All I have to do is put my fingers in the right place at the right time, and the world can be mine. You know, and doing that, and it was quite good, really, because the sort of, if you can string a couple of notes together and it sounds like a song, then it is a song.
Then it's a song.
Yeah. If it sounds like it, then it is.
A song,
it doesn't matter that you can't play guitar like Jeff Beck or you can't. But if you've got something else, you know, you've got those notes working, then that's what it is. And then if you're lucky, like we were with the band, really, the other members have all got good, strong ideas as well. And so if you're going with something that isn't necessarily finished, but is work in progress, then, you know, it's quite likely that Captain will turn around and say, well, if we do this at that point where you've gone wrong, then, you know, we end up with something bigger and better. And that's, you know, it's a great creative process.
And you guys, when you this Dam 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 and the second record, well, more specific, Dam Dam Dam, do you understood like what was going on with the punk movement? Do you were like?
No. There were no rules. Nobody could tell you anything, you know. Well, no, you believe, say, think, wear, do what you liked. You know, Johnny Rotten wasn't the moral judge of punk rock. We were all, you know, all of the bands that were there were frustrated with what had been going on before, but it certainly didn't give us any rights to dominate and say this is how it has to be, and, you know, this is what you must look like, and this is what you must think, this is what you must say, you know. So it kind of makes me laugh because people say, punk rock, the ethics, and there were none. It was, you know, is it cool to steal that apple?
But because you got to share the likes with the Dam. I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying that even probably you're not that commercial probably as compared as the, I don't know, the Clash. But people who knows about the movement and everything, it's like they always say like Sex Pistols, the Clash, and the Dam. It's like those three were the How do you say right now? It's the goats of
the Stranglers must be furious.
Yeah. So I don't know, just because of how was your relationship with those?
Good. We used to play football. We'd go to the pub. We'd drink beer and talk about what was happening to us, and we'd all, because there weren't many punk gigs, so we'd all go to them. If there was a band playing, you know, everyone would be there, and we all used to meet on a Saturday afternoon in Portobello Road, and just, it was there, you know. Lemmy would always be in the corner, and we'd be there with our short hair and but not really knowing why.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can talk about, but coming up next, I've heard this. The- well, I first want to ask. I have one question here. Like, since back then, I mean, we had like a lot of social movements of social resistance, and from now and then it's like very interesting, and I find it very, I don't know how to say it. Fulfills me
Yeah.
knowing that music is like it's in front of it.
Mm.
Yeah, we had recently a guy talking about there's like in Mexico a new wave of music. I don't know if you ever heard about it. If not, there's no problem. But there is like the corridos tumbados that it's starting to overrun charts, to overrun the world, and the people is starting to talk about it. But there's always we
Send me
were
a link. I'd like to hear it. It's
what?
Gorilla Timbala.
Yeah, corridos tumbados. If you want, I can put you at the.
Yeah, send me a link. I'll
Something,
check him
yeah.
out. Yeah.
I don't know. You probably won't like it. It's, it really is not my favorite, but I found interesting that this like songs always talk about some realities of the youth, right?
Mm.
It exposes the struggles of
Yeah. And you know
So-
what though? What do they do about it? You see, now if you look at punk rock, we had that amazing opportunity and we wasted it. We didn't change anything. If anything, the world got slightly worse.
from your from your point of view, what do you think punk was pursuing?
It was liberty, really. It was the freedom to look the way you wanted and think the way you wanted, and you know that was as far as it went, because nobody was, certainly not in the first wave. You know, with the big three, nobody had an agenda or any idea of what to do. We were just having a good laugh. It used to be fun. You could walk down the street and people would stop and stare, or try and kill you, or hit you, or you know, or cut their hair and then find out what it was about. It was, you know, but like I said, there was no, you know, nothing was written down. Malcolm McLaren and Bernie Rhodes didn't sit us all in a room and give us a lecture as to what society was going to do next. You know, it was, nobody knew. And so what we did was we just took advantage of the fact that nobody really knew, and we just sort of made fun of the rest of them.
And will you do anything different right now if you got the chance to do it?
What if I could do it all over
Yes.
again? If I could do it all over again, I'd do it all over you.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, maybe not. I really.
But will you do something different? Because I mean, it's yeah, this lyrics back then and right now it exposed. No, not talking about specifically corrido tumbado, but a lot of.
But it's a telegraph, isn't
But
it?
the music, it could be used as a catalyst of change.
Yeah.
It can be like a.
I think what it has done, which is for me is very interesting, all of these years later, is now we've got quite a few kind of politicians that were punk rockers who, you know,
Okay,
who
so-
are now in quite powerful positions. There's one guy, Mick Lynch, who runs the railway unions in England, who's been fighting with the government for about 2 years, you know, who's great. And then it turned out a friend of mine was talking, and it was like, oh yeah, you know, he's a Clash fan, he's a local boy, he's punk rock, he's coming down. And Captain was telling me just this morning that the mayor of Croydon, which is where Captain's from, introduced the Damned when they played there with his chains and all of his things. And you know, so what is interesting is that even though I'm saying, well, we didn't change anything. Actually, what's happened is the influence of punk is now applying to people of power and political positions.
But you do think that music has the power to change?
I think music's a telegraph. It informs people of how other people are feeling. And I think that's important. But like I say, the ability to change the way those people are feeling, poverty, not having food, and how do you actually change that with a song? You can make people aware that that's what's going on and that's what's happening, but how do you actually make a significant difference to that situation? Unless you make a record about it and people buy it, and then you're out of the water and all the other poor bastards can carry on drowning. It's.
Yeah, but I mean, I usually got to get pretty interested about these youth movements, and there's like one particular one that I think it comes at the age of punk, and I find pretty interesting that music really, it's like a, how do you say that when in an army there's like a front man and it holds a flag,
the flag bearer,
something like that.
I think you're right. I think it is. It's here we are, we're dissatisfied, or here we are and we're happy. It's whatever the message is. It's and it's important it's there because it does. I mean, today you make a record in Mexico, people in Japan will hear it within hours of it being finished and ready to go. You now have a global influence, which is something that is quite new.
So at some point, you guys must notice back then that you were holding that flag. You did, like
trying to give it to someone else.
Yeah, of course, not talking like you were, but you kind of you had it. So
yeah,
when you guys noticed that, do you guys started to making things different, or because I even heard a lot of people saying that they classify right now the Dam as more like a I think they call it gothic rock.
Goth.
Yeah, but at some
see,
point,
Dave Vanian always looked like Dave Vanian. He didn't suddenly dye his hair and put on a pair of black trousers. Yeah. Dave was always like that. That was why, I wanted him in the band, was because he was the real thing. Didn't matter if he was fixing a car or digging a garden. He would always look like Dave Vanian. He'd always look great. And that was, that was everything. Really a genuine commitment. Even though a lot of people accused him of just, putting the makeup on before the gig. But those of us that knew him knew that, no, he lives like that every day. That's his lifestyle. And so, that was good.
So okay, coming up next, we have I've heard this like, I don't know if that's like immediately after punk, but they started talking about this neo-punk, and I've heard that the neo-punk started when the lyrics of the songs started talking about college girls and the love in college girls and
yeah, I don't know, it's nothing to do with me.
So but you ever heard about neo-punk?
I don't know what it is really.
It kinds of trying to take back some things of a punk and trying to put it into the reality. Because I don't know if you heard about these bands. I think you're having a concert with one of them about The Offspring.
Okay, now I know what you're talking
Green
about.
Day and
yeah. Well, I don't know. It's sort of good luck to them, really. It's you see, punk rock. The greatest thing about punk rock was its simplicity, and the fact that you didn't have to go to a music college to learn the instrument, and that it was easy to achieve. And I think that's one of the things that's sustained it for much longer, is that it is easy to achieve. And I think when, Offspring and Green Day, I think they're good at being that. I don't think they're particularly punky. I think they're very punk influenced, but I think it's more from, videos and records than actually being on the ground and part of it. I don't know. I'm not really qualified to talk about their motives, but yeah, good. I can't say anything really. Offspring earned me a big lump of money, and it made me want to stop playing because it was crazy. Because it suddenly earned the biggest check I'd ever had. And it came from another band playing one of the songs. And I'd never earned anything like that much money playing that Smash It Up in the Damned. And it was like, why am I bothering? I might as well just hope that someone else covers another one and I can,
Yeah.
Not. So it's strange. On the one hand, you sort of think, yeah, they're good at being that. But I don't know if in 1976 you would have counted them as a...
Damn, a lot to think about. But to wrap it up, we usually want you to make some music recommendations. If you're listening to something, you can drop the recommendation to whoever is behind that camera. It can be music, bands. We are starting to ask for series, movies, whatever you want to recommend. It would be great.
What, music or anything?
Yeah, pretty much anything. We rather a little bit music, but if you want to drop something else.
Well, no, I'm I don't know. It's big and varied. I've been listening to Big Damn Band, Reverend Payton's Big Damn Band.
Big Damn Band.
Yeah, but they're it's a blues thing. I just like the way he plays and the way the record sounds. And I've been working on a project with a friend of mine called the Sinclairs, which I'm very...
Oh, I think I've heard about them.
Yeah, I like
Sinclairs.
it. We kind of COVID came along and ruined our career, so we just made another record, and it was the thing that really got us both through COVID. Long distance, sending files to each other and making that. So I'd always like to put in a plug for the Sinclairs, and I've been watching The Penguin.
I've heard it's such a huge thing.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's one of
and I was yesterday. I was to listening to the. I don't know I don't know how to pronounce his surname, but it's Mike Giacchino or something like that. The guy who produces the music. This is like a violent stuff that happens.
But it's compared to everything else, it's great TV. And I don't know. I find everything so formalised and quite standard. If when you go on Netflix, hitman brought out of retirement for one last job, daughter of a kidnapped policeman brought out of retirement for one last job. And there's kind of all this thing of it. Please, give me something that I want to watch, that draws me in, that makes me want to watch the next episode.
And that was The Penguin.
And that was The Penguin.
Okay, so yeah, I'll definitely watch it and hope they do too. So, I usually ask for the guest that make the goodbye.
You've been watching the mixtape. Thank you very much. I'm off.
Hey, how you guys doing? You ready? In the mixtape.